Question number 9, Jami-Lee Ross.
My question is to the Minister for Building and Housing and asks, what progress has the government made in growing the rate of new house construction, particularly in Auckland?
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
New home construction data out yesterday showed 2,400 consents for February nationally, the highest February in a decade and the second highest on record ever. In Auckland, 787 new homes were consented in February, up 50% on February's 528. This rate was 300 a month when I became Minister and 200 a month when we became government. The number of houses being built in Auckland has grown by 23%, 22% and 30% over the last 3 years, making it the longest and strongest period of building growth ever in history in Auckland.
Supplementary question, Jami-Lee Ross.
What reports has the Minister received on the total value of residential and commercial building work currently underway in Auckland and New Zealand?
The Honourable Dr
Mr
Nick
Speaker,
Smith.
the value of total new building consented over the last year to February 2016 is $13.5 billion, made up of $9.2 billion in the residential sector and $4.3 billion of commercial work. This total is the highest ever in both nominal and real inflation-adjusted terms and reflects the level of confidence that there is both in New Zealand and in the building sector. In Auckland, the value of residential building work bottomed out in the GFC at $1 billion per year, but is now $3.4 billion per year, and again this is the highest level ever of residential investment in Auckland in both nominal and real terms.
Supplementary question, Jami-Lee Ross.
What do the latest figures show about growth in the building sector outside the main centres?
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, the level of building growth is well above Auckland levels in a whole number of centres through regional New Zealand. In Whangarei, building consent numbers year on year are up 44%, Hamilton up 20%, Tauranga up 22%, Rotorua up 90%, Palmerston North up 40%, Wanganui up 50%, Ashburton up 20%, Queenstown up 41% and Invercargill up over 20%. Regional New Zealand is also enjoying renewed confidence in the building and housing sectors, and that's good news for our whole country.
Supplementary question, Phil Twyford.
When does he expect to attain the levels of new builds achieved under the last Labor government of 31,000 new dwellings a year, compared to his best efforts after nearly 8 years in office of only 27,000? And by how many will he have to exceed the massive Labor new build number to catch up on the 40,000 deficit of homes that Auckland has built up under his watch?
Order. Either of those two supplementary questions?
Mr Speaker, I'd firstly point out that in the last parliamentary term we built more houses than what Labor did in its last parliamentary term. I'd further advise him that the advice I have from member officials is that 36,000 new homes will be built in Auckland in this term of Parliament, and that is more than has been built under any parliamentary term in Auckland, and substantially more than what Labor did. I'd also point out, actually, at the core of Auckland's housing problems is the dopey planning policies of the previous government that slowed down the supply of sections and contributed to the high house price.
Order. It was initiated by a very long question, I might add. But
thank you,
Phil
Mr. Speaker.
Twyford, supplementary question.
Does he agree with Bill English, who confirmed to the House yesterday that despite all the minister's exaggerated promises of hundreds of new houses on Crown land in the last budget, that, and I quote, none have actually been completed? and is such a stinging rebuke from a senior ministerial colleague of his ongoing failure to deal with the Auckland...
We're now leading to a stage where that question is going to be ruled out. The first part of the question can be answered.
Speaker, the member's claims on what the Minister of Finance yesterday are about as accurate as his figures on Chinese house buyers in Auckland. It's rubbish. What the Minister of Finance said yesterday is in last year's budget we provided $55 million for my ministry to buy land to be able to provide new housing, and we said then it would take about 18 months for those houses to come on stream, and we stand by that. What I find extraordinary is that we are building more houses in Auckland than at any time ever, and the member still complains.
Question.